So I'd invite Cheryl Doig from Grow Waitaha to the table. Cheryl, good morning. Good to have you with us. You have 5 minutes for this public participation item, and for councillors there is a document which has been uploaded to the hub to support this presentation. So over to you. Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm here with a strategic partnership hat on today for Grow Waitaha. And first of all, how many of you have heard of Grow Waitaha? Fabulous. By the end, you'll all be completely au fait with it. So there's a sheet that Joe's just handing around that's the infographic of Grow Waitaha. Essentially, Grow Waitaha was a program started by the Ministry of Education in partnership with Ngāi Tahu through Mataraka Mahanui and 4 strategic partners. And it's connected with the rebuild of Christchurch schools. So that was the impetus, but of course you can rebuild buildings, but that doesn't mean things change inside them. So Grow Waitaha is a program supporting schools through the change process, and there's a whole lot of different arms to that, which you'll find on the infographic I've provided. But I just want to give you a little update on what's happening, because this is a profound thing in the city. It's exciting, and it's increasingly got national and international interest. So Grow Waitaha has different arms to it, and you'll see that on one page there's navigate, grow, curate and evaluate. It all sounds very important, but when schools are starting a rebuild process, that's the Ministry of Education's property arm. However, alongside of that, schools have the opportunity to have a navigator, which is from our Grow Waitaha project. And a navigator is a person that sits alongside, that works with the school to think about what they want for their school in terms of learning for the next 50 years, because that's what they're going to be built for. And so a navigator can be appointed to a school to help them through their education brief and the master planning, but also to sit alongside them and help them explore the vision or to consult with community. They don't do the work, they support them to do the work themselves. And as you'll know from your own areas of interest, schools are very different from each other, and principals are very different from each other, and so it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's nothing about this program that is done to. It's done with in partnership, and it's directed by the schools as to how much they want to be involved or not. So that navigate part is connected with the physical rebuild, but the rest of the program is not. So there are a lot of programs in the city in the grow space where teachers, principals, students, etc. can increasingly become engaged in things like meetups, workshops, things that are customised for a particular school that are related to changes in education and where they might want to head. So there are tours around some of the schools that other schools can go and learn from each other. So it's very interactive. And just to give you an example, secondary community of practice. So secondary schools in the Christchurch started by not doing much talking to each other. They're increasingly talking to each other. In fact, we've just started a community of practice that has got 33 secondary schools and area schools in the Greater Christchurch region. 3 to 4 people from each school working together, talking about wellness and what that looks like in the new changes in education. That's a huge shift in our city. As well as that, the curate space, really, we've got a website. You can look at all the resources that are available for schools to learn and share ideas and celebrate actually success, but also to make our mark nationally and internationally. So our resources are used very widely and increasingly so. So the website's on the infographic, but there are also some new resources where we've looked at what's happening in the city. There's some resources coming out on adaptive governance and also leading for change that take the stories of the city and help to share those so we can all learn together. And I guess the evaluate, on the front side you'll see that there's 9 things in the evaluative framework. This is a joint project. This procurement model is a talking to and working with, not a ministry telling us what to do. And I think that's a model that we could all learn and grow from. I'd just like to finish. As I was sharing that I was going to be talking with you today, I had a response from one of the principals in the city, Robin Sutton, who's principal at Hornby High. And he says this: "Grow Waitaha, perhaps the most powerful force for change in secondary education in New Zealand since BB." When I first started the job, I couldn't figure out what Grow Waitaha was all about. Even said to Chris Jansen, "Why would I invest my time in this?" Then the penny dropped. The dynamism of collaboration, the opportunity to share practice without judgment, it's outstanding. I've leveraged more change at Hornby in 6 terms with the influence of Grow Waitaha than I'd thought possible. So with that note, you know about Grow Waitaha, please share it widely with your constituents, but also if there's any leverage and links, the Grow Waitaha is about the city, not just about a project in education. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou.
Thank you very much indeed for providing that information. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Thank you. So now moving to item 3.12, I'd invite Mark Inglis from the Horonui Heartland Cycle Ride Coordination Horonui Trails Trust, and Councillor Jason Fletcher from the Horonui District Council to the table to talk to us about the Horonui Heartland Cycle Ride. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Councillors, thank you very much for your time. As we suggested, my name is Mark Inglis. I'm the ride coordinator. I've had the contract to create the Horonui Heartland Cycle Ride, and Jason Fletcher here, the chair of the Horonui Trails Trust as well. What I'd like to do is, for a start, is perhaps indicate what the actual Horonui Trails Trust is around. The Horonui Trails Trust was created in 2009 as a governance and umbrella structure for the walking and cycling strategies in North Canterbury. To that end, it's also been endorsed by the Horonui District Council as the champion group for implementing the walking and cycling and other trails strategies in that area. The Trails Trust has seen the need to create a coordinator position, which we've done initially under the umbrella of creating the Horonui Heartland Ride. From there, it's that coordinator, as you can see, interacts with a very large number of groups. The Horonui Heartland Cycle Ride has just been approved by NZTA as part of the New Zealand National Cycling Network just in the previous few weeks. Currently, the signage and the route runs from Rangiora all the way through the quiet backcountry roads all the way to Kaikoura. The concept of a Heartland Ride is to utilise the infrastructure that's already in place, so the cycleways, but predominantly the quiet country roads. And it's to enable us to get cyclists to have the experience of that incredible vistas that we have, especially in North Canterbury, but also to connect with the rural communities as well. The concept was originally Amberley to Kaikoura, but one of the things that I discovered in taking over this role is actually we need to be looking further south as well as north. And the concept really is from Cathedral Square here all the way to Kaikoura. And what you have here is a phenomenal set of cycleways that you have created that will intersect and be of great benefit. This isn't about building cycleways, this is about utilising what you have. And we're very pleased to see that the NZTA have recognised it as well as the preferred route to get to Kaikoura. To that end, where are we at now? We have that approval now. The next stage of approval is actually to become under the umbrella of the New Zealand Cycle Trails Inc. The company that MB has set up to look after the cycle trails as one of their Heartland rides. As I mentioned before, these rides are the rides that sit underneath the great cycle rides, the rides to get cyclists around. We'll be looking at getting registration with our NZCT over the coming months, but just having the NZTA registration is a huge boon for this area. To that end, we go through 5 regional authorities, so from Marlborough District Council through Kaikoura, Hurunui, Waimakariri and here into Christchurch. What we've developed is a simple MOU, really just to state that we all think it's a great idea and give some empowerment to the council officers in each area to work in the best possible way, as we put it, in a no surprises, collaborative way to try and make this work. There are many other opportunities that we have. The Huranui Coastal Cycle Ride, which will take you from Waikari up through Greta Valley, through Motunau Beach, all the way up to Gore Bay, back into Cheviot, over into Culverden. We have, of course, the Waipiro Vineyard Trails. We have the proposed Cathedral Square to Waipiro Wine Trail that is being proposed as well. There's a whole raft of opportunities out there, and what we would like to do is just to have everyone on the same page and open and put all of these opportunities on the table. What I'd like to do, just to finish off, is to acknowledge the support of the Huranui Trails Trust, especially for the governance and of the concept, and also the wider walking and cycling opportunities in North Canterbury. So this isn't just within the Huranui, it extends further out, here into Christchurch, further north. Here in Christchurch you have a huge pool of potential people that will be using it. Part of the marketing for the Huranui Heartland Cycle Ride will be the development of itineraries to effectively to sell to people. That's me.
Minding himself.
Yeah.
He talks.
I do. It's pretty hard to shut me up. So, but thank you very much. And also, I'd like to acknowledge the planning department at the Huranui District Council and Stephanie Chin for the work involved in getting this over the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I mean, this is certainly a very interesting project, and you'll almost certainly be aware of the joined-up approach that we're wanting to take as a council to working with our neighbours. This certainly touches on that. The importance of active transport as one of our objectives as a council, and our focus on our own major cycleways programme, and the fact that we recently hosted the Asia Pacific Cycling Congress here in Christchurch. So the fact that this council is well aligned with the project that you've described means that, you know, certainly the presentation is of some interest to us. Now, clearly the request is to move to the signing of an MOU, which obviously is something that you're talking across a number of councils about. Probably the best way to deal with that would be we'll clearly need some staff advice on what our involvement could be and how that might best be made to happen. My suggestion would be that we refer the matters that you've raised to staff so that they can provide advice to the appropriate committee, so that we can get those discussions underway. So we've got a resolution here that the council refer the matters raised in the presentation to staff to provide advice to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee. I'm certainly happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Mike Davidson. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much for bringing this to us this morning so that we can start that conversation about how we can be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest and your support.
Thank you. So now moving to item 3.13, I'd invite Kathleen Gallagher and Gayleen Barnes to the table to talk to us about Seven Rivers Walking, Haere Maire.
Gayleen Barnes. We are filmmakers from Christchurch. We've been working in film for the last 20 years, and we've just made the film Seven Rivers Walking, Haere Maire. That is to walk, to go gently and peacefully with the water. Gayleen.
Hi, I'm Gayleen Barnes, also one of the filmmakers. We filmed around 7 to 8 rivers in Canterbury, including the Aotearoa Avon and the Okawaho Heathcote River. I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a farmer out of Rakaia, and I have an organic farm out there, and I'm also a trustee of the Roy Marta Food Commons, where we're investing in the regenerative planting around Woolston River, the Woolston Loop and Radley Park, and we're planting an edible forest there. So But our film was received really well, and I'm just going to start by showing you an excerpt from the start of the film, just to...
Mighty retired, isn't it? Mighty retired. It's just a disgrace that it can come so far, and our little voices just don't carry very loud.
Once you start doing stuff at the river's got in there. Our well comes probably from, we only live about 500 metres, so we've probably literally drinking the river.
Sister and I have been really concerned about the state of the river even then, 16 years ago, and we organised a public meeting in this hall where a lot of the hut people came, and a couple of Ecan people came, and he said to me, Helen, it's about time people realised if they want to go swimming, they use swimming pools. And the thing that upset me is I should have done something more then.
If people care about the river, they show they care about it. But when they've got active emotion and challenging into actual action of what we can do and what can every one of us contribute to.
We don't want people to be emotional, right? So, when are we going to get emotional about the river, you know? I think you've got to let people be emotional, because it's like, this is where we live, you know? It's great.
This taonga, it honours Taro Whakamotai, grandfather of the waters, and Whinya Moana, grandmother of the waters, and all the waters below and above, and all those realms. Just honours the tuna hou, the short fin deal, and it's a very special wheel, like all the creatures of the waters that are, you know, having a hard time with it, to say the least.
Yeah, so what we discovered during our walks was that the rivers are in crisis, the biodiversity is suffering, and people really care about the river. And this Potoko is carrying the wishes and the hopes of the community. We spoke to hundreds of people all around Christchurch and Canterbury, and it's invested in this Potoko, which they walked with, and we walked all of the rivers with this. We filmed it, we've made a feature film. It was the largest single screening feature film in the New Zealand International Film Festival this year, so that's something we're very proud of, and I think as Cantabrians we can be very proud of that as well, because it's a very local film. It's also done really well nationally.
Yeah, and there's another wee clip we just show you at the top of the Heath kit, so you might be aware of what's happening here, right in our...
At this point, it's got a number of contaminants already into the stream. It's high in dissolved ammonia, phosphorus, suspended solids, zinc and copper from the copper brake pads on vehicles. You can see down here the yellow sort of pebbles in the stream as well. So you've got sulphur that's discharging into the stream too. And this is the beginning of the Hete River. All of the streams in Christchurch City suffer from urban pollution with waterways. Hayden Stream is perhaps the most industrially polluted stream in Canterbury, and so there's a focused effort to clean up this stream, because all of the drains in Christchurch pretty much enter our waterways without treatment. So the key message is that drains lead to streams.
So yeah. So that's that last bit's not in the film. Sorry about that. That's just an excerpt. But
It's available on the DVD.
Yeah, it's available on the DVD. So we're launching the DVD on Saturday night at the South Springston Hall with some of the people that are in the film. And the DVD will be available, and we would like to work with Pauline and the water groups for the people's awareness to grow about our rivers. So at the moment we'll be selling DVDs, but we're also making available like fundraising screenings, and we're happy to support the screenings. Like we'll go along and answer questions if you organise groups of people to do, you know, screenings. So we somehow would like to work with the council, especially about our 2 awa here, which and especially the Heathcote Opawaho, which is seriously in danger. And we'd also like to thank Glenn and Phil, who both were part, I think, in the film, but they appeared on some of our walks. I don't know, has anybody else seen the film? Yes.
And Councillor Templeton. Oh, good.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, and the last screening of the film in the cinema is out at Hollywood at 4 o'clock on Saturday, but the DVD is available online from www.7rivers.nz. And we would like to present this poem to the council for use during the next 4 weeks while the water kōrero takes place. And we ask that it be on display and that it be in a safe place, because this takes the hopes and dreams and wishes of the people for the clearing and the purification of our waterways.
Kia ora. Thank you. So now moving to item 3.14 in our agenda, I'd invite John Mackenzie from Urology Associates to the table. And John, you're going to be talking to us about the Urology Associates car park cannonball, and we've got more visuals. It's a very visual meeting so far this morning.
Indeed.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with a little bit of AV, so hopefully this is nice and loud, and away we go.
Have you heard the news? The Urology Association car park cannonball race, I guess you could call it, in Christchurch, November 26th. This is a really cool idea. It's about beer, it's about bikes, it's about beggars, and of course, really good music, and raising money for a really good cause, men's health, and this is, of course, Movember. I wish I could be there, but I'm away shooting Amazing Race right now, so I'm going to miss out on this incredible experience. If you can get out and you can be a part of this, do it, because I know it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the photographs and seeing the videos and hearing all about it. Get out there, give this a go. It's a great cause and a lot of fun.
So, good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name's John McKenzie. I'm from Enthuse, a media events business in Christchurch, and in the next 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about the car park Cannonball, which is Rolly Associates car park Cannonball, and I'm going to finish with some highly passionate thoughts around cycling and Christchurch, an active transport city, a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to visit when you bring your bike. So, thanks for your time this morning. First up about the event. It is a new global car park cycling series, and it's the first time being held in New Zealand. It is the only Southern Hemisphere event, and it's massive in Europe, and it's had 2 successful events there. The next one is here. It's mountain bikes, road bikes, all sorts of bikes, riding up an 8-storey car park building in the central city with a finish line and a party on the roof. It is a Men's Health Movember fundraiser, and God bless you for noticing my mow this morning. Donations are accepted. Either I have my credit card facility available. So what we've got is you can enjoy an ice cold beer on the roof of an inner city building watching the sunset over Christchurch, a New Zealand first. There are bubbles. There's also some gourmet burgers. There's a DJ. There's a band on the roof. Yes, that is U2, ladies and gentlemen. I can announce this morning that U2 are not playing at the event, but the Mule are. So negotiations with them didn't quite work out. So it is from the 8th floor in a central city car park. Everybody is welcome. You are invited to a party on the roof, bikes, beers, burgers, and a band. It's the Innovation Car Park building, and I have to point out at this point, the City Council have been outstanding in their support for this event. They've bought into the vision. Brooke and the team from the events team have been amazing. Been very, very good. So, an opportunity for Christchurch, an active transport city, an active city. With my background experience in cycling, the media and events, there is a huge opportunity for the city that we are sitting on right now that I'm extremely passionate about to sell this destination, not only as an events destination, but as a cycling destination. It's about visitation, it's about using great events. Now this event, I want this event to be the first of many years, and I want this event to be the catalyst of other cycling related and fitness orientated events that are basically about getting bums on seats, making it active, putting the city on the international map. This is a huge opportunity. Christchurch is open. You can bring your bike and have a bloody good time here. I've been fortunate enough through my experiences in events and media to ride my bike all around the world. Without name dropping, I've ridden with some likes of Phil Kogan, I've ridden with the likes of Greg LeMond, Tour de France winners, and lots of recreational cyclists around the world. This place rocks to ride your bike. It has got the flats, it's got the hills, it's got the scenery, and it is just crying to be sold as a destination to ride your bike. There is also a massive opportunity for the infrastructure as a fantastic place to live and breathe and ride to work on your bikes. I've recently been attended a conference in Perth with their cycleways. That's in Adelaide with their cycleways, and I mean $150 million investment in their cycleways here is absolutely fantastic, but we need community engagement. We need the people to be using them, and I haven't got enough time to talk about that now, but I'm really looking forward to more time to talk about that, to be fair. Look, funnily enough, just as I sort of wrap things up, I was paid by the Napier City Council to help them with some destinational messaging around cycling. I have worked with South Australia Tourism to help sell Adelaide and South Australia Tourism as a destination. I spent 9 years attending their biggest event, and it is all about using bikes to sell the destination. The Tour Down Under invests almost $50 million into the local economy in 1 week in Adelaide. We can do that in Christchurch, and this is a very short clip that I just want to show you just as an example of some work I've done with Napier about bums on bikes and selling the destination.
I think riding's going to be on the cards.
come to Napier and live the dream of the elite national road cycling champion with Rob.
Yeah, so look, to be fair, and they obviously paid me, Napier's a great place, but we kick their ass, okay? Let's just be brutal about that. I mean, Napier's a lovely wineries and all the rest of it, but we have so much more to offer. All right, just to finish up, I just want to point out, I also have run another couple of large events with international reach. I ran a Legends of Cycling dinner in Auckland that was huge. I brought in some of the biggest names in world cycling to New Zealand for the first time. I want to run events like that here in Christchurch. You know, that was huge. Feedback from that event was better than the Halbergs. I brought in Tour de France winner Greg LeMond, had Phil Liggett, the voice of cycling, joined by Kiwi Julian Dean. Napier paid me, made me an offer I couldn't refuse to take it to Napier this year. Okay, so I ran that with Robbie McEwen. That's just an example of the event, and I've got to say again, thank you to the Christchurch City Council and the events team for seeing the vision. This event is going to be huge. We've already got both TV networks looking at running something tomorrow night. Huge media this week. I've just come from doing some stuff on radio this morning. We've got Chris Lynch tomorrow morning. It's had international reach. The biggest cycling show in the world online is called the GCN show. Our event was on that show. The two events in Europe didn't get a mention. Our event was actually on that show. It is watched by over 1 million people, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So, look, thank you very much for your time. I am about this being an active city, a great place to live and work in, but also a great place to visit. So, my name's John Mackenzie from Enthuse, and I enjoy riding my bike. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an incredibly enthusiastic presentation and a
my
great...
business is called Enthuse.
I know. I thought I'd just leap on board, you know, so thank you very much for that. And the last item of public forum presentation is Nick Rogers.
Morning all, councillors, mayor. I'm here to have a discussion about the rates increases that we've been incurring over the last years. My concern is of the ongoing increases that we're having. So the rates are now at a level where some people are struggling to pay their rates. This is ruining some people's livelihoods. People are working hard for years to set themselves up in some affluent areas, but those people have been there for some 20 years, raised a family, and now they're struggling to pay their rates based on, you know, they can't just keep asking for increases in their wages or what their expenses are. The council has got to seriously take a look at how much they're increasing their rates. I mean, there's been some articles written in some of the local magazines and papers and what have you, and we've had an increase of over 24% in the past 3 years. I don't know anywhere else that's occurred. And Christchurch rates are some of the highest in the country. We pay our base fee is nearly 3 cents based on the value of your property. In some areas, that's as low as 0.8 of a cent. So we've got to seriously take a look at how we're expecting our ratepayers to front up and fund this city. It's really, the people are struggling. There's people not paying their power, there's people not paying, they're doing without food. There was an article that was written and it talked about how the rates, there's over 1,000 people that are having problems paying their rates. The rates have increased, I've already said that, just a moment please. Yeah, so we're looking at another 5.4% increase for this financial year, and that's way above inflation. I can't see how you can keep expecting people to front with that sort of money. Just a moment, there's some other articles here I need to have a look at. Yeah, so there's 24,000 people that are struggling in Christchurch. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker, people. I'm not as good as the person before me, but I'm quite passionate about people not being able to afford their rates. I mean, I've spoken to the Mayor about this. She wrote me a letter some 2 years ago saying that she was going to make some concerted efforts to keep it under 5%. Well, once again, we're over 5%. We've dealt with Jamie Goff. He's done his best. But it just seems to fall on deaf ears, and that's the only reason I've come here, to sit down and face up and say, what can we do about it? I know we've got expenses to rebuild a city, but we were expensive before that, and the government made us an assurance that we wouldn't be worse off from this earthquake. We are. Sorry, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. I mean, obviously we're getting ourselves prepared for the long-term plan process, and you don't have to be a powerful public speaker to present a powerful message. You know, I don't think there's anyone sitting around this table that doesn't have sympathy for the level of rates increases that have been applied. A promise that nobody would be worse off. It might have been made after the September earthquake. It was completely undeliverable after the February earthquake, and somebody should have fronted up and said so. We have still got a number of challenges facing us as a city because of the cost of rebuilding the infrastructure, not just the horizontal infrastructure, our land drainage, and a number of items that we've got on the agenda today. You'll see the extent of the contribution that the city is being asked to make in order to provide people with some relief from the flooding that's been caused by the earthquake. So, look, we are doing our level best. We have got a long-term plan process that, again, will invite the public to submit on it. I do want to see us over time reduce our rates commitment, and I don't think that there's anyone around the table that disagrees with that. But it is going to be challenging, and we are going to have to be pretty tough in terms of the decisions that we make, but also the community expectations. The expectation that nobody would be worse off is not one that can be delivered, not by any government and not by the city. So thank you very much. Can I invite you to come back as part of the long-term plan process and submit again?
Yes, I'd love to.
Thank you.
I mean, there's one other thing. If I was paying rates in Auckland based on my value of my property, I know I've got an expensive property. It's $9,000 a year now. If I was in Auckland, it'd be $4,700.
Yes, I know, but you wouldn't have the capital value of your property in Auckland set at the level it is down here, because your property would be valued much higher in Auckland because of property prices in Auckland. So it's not comparing apples with apples in terms of how the distribution curve works. Auckland has way more expensive properties than Christchurch does.
I've struggled to find out how the value is calculated. I know there's a percentage basis of about 2.9%.
We think as a council that continuing to expect people to pay for local services based on the rateable value of their properties is a lose-lose. It's a no-sum game. There is no good outcome from it. We need additional sources of revenue for the city. Oh, yeah, I don't have the exact number in front of me. But of the 24,000, a significant number of those properties, 6,700 were settled because they were the government's rates obligation out of the residential red zone. So that they weren't all individual property owners. There was about a quarter of them or a third of them.
I think 9,900 were.
Yeah. I don't know the number. I wasn't here when they discussed the number, but it was a significant number of those properties. But it's less than half. It was only about a third or a quarter of the properties, maybe a third of the properties, where in fact the government's the government had a bit of a dispute as to paying the rates component of the residential red zone. So then they weren't homeowners. They were the government, and they've since settled the bill. So
because in an article,
it's still a yes, I know, but the article included the total number, not the net number without the government.
Well, there was still over 1,000 people that couldn't afford to pay their rates that year.
Yeah, no, there's still a significant number, and your point is utterly valid. I was just asked to point that out. Thank you very much, and I look forward to you coming back as part of the long-term plan process, but thank you. Right, now we move on to deputations by appointment, and we have 2 deputations on item 14, the Pawahu.
Can I do the reports first? So
well, I can do the. Oh well, okay. Well, we've got a second supplementary. We've got a supplementary report for the second deputations that we need to bring onto the agenda. So I'd like to move that we bring item 47, Medway Street footbridge, onto the agenda, seconded by Sarah Templeton. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And can I invite Sheena Sherritt to come to the table? Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko te mea tuatahi ki te mihi ki te mana whenua o te tēnei takiwa, ko Kāti Māmoe, ko Waitaha, ko Kaitahu, kei te mihi hoki ki te konihira o Otautahi, ki te rangatira o te konihira hoki. Ko ai au, ko Sheena Sherritt tōko ingoa, ko au te māma o Hamish, Rawa, ko Rātou, ko Elizabeth, ko Will, ko Kevin Takutani. Ko au te māngai o ngā tangata ki te noho, ki te tāhau o te upa wāho. I'm Sheena Sherritt. I am just a resident. I've just come today to talk as a newbie for our personal experience of living next to the Heathcote, to the upa wāho, which has been flooded above the floor 3 times since the earthquakes. I'm going to find this a reasonably challenging experience, so I hope you'll forgive me. I really wanted to start by thanking you for the opportunity to come, and I wanted to thank all your staff for the hard work that they have done, putting into energy and effort, and I know that they've been frustrated by the time that it's taken as well as it has for us. I also wanted to say that it was really heartening to hear on the 16th of October that this was an earthquake-affected situation, and I really thank you for acknowledging that. We've lived by the Heathcote for about 15 years now, which probably makes us about a quarter of the way to becoming a local. Thank you for laughing. My 15-year-old told me that I might be funny or I might not. I'm not sure. We live there because we like the people who walk their dogs and their children and themselves, and we like the river view. We know the names of our neighbours and we know some stuff about them too, and the names of their dogs. Since the earthquake, it's been a different experience. After the earthquake, we realised that if 20 mils of rain fell in a short period of time, we better start thinking about shifting the car around, out of the driveway, round the corner to higher ground. We also have some other vaguely optimistic calculations, but I'm not an engineer, although Peter tells me that I'm pretty good at it. In 2004, it had been raining, and we went to bed and we took peered through the curtains one last time to see how the river. I'd shifted the car, but I was advised by my expert in the living room that I was definitely overreacting, and there was no way the other one needed shifting. More on that car later. In the early hours of the morning, it was dark, and I woke to a strange kind of sound, and I thought, I wonder what that is. And I looked over and I could see the multi-board sparking. And I went, oh my Lord, my then 12, 13-year-old son went, what? And I heard him step out into the water, and I thought, please God, don't let this be live. It wasn't. Our house has got a slightly split level. There's a small step up to a living space. So we carried the children at about 6 in the morning up to that space, and we put them on the steps and we waited for light, because we looked outside and we could see that people's fences were floating past, and our big log rings were also floating down our driveway. We waited until it was safe to see so that we could walk out. The children, the 7-year-old and the 9-year-old, they thought that was awesome fun. And it was really good fun being carried out. The 13-year-old, not so much. The water smelt, it stung our legs, and we had to dodge, as I say, large blocks of wood coming down. The cat got floated out on the kayak. It was all a pretty sort of surreal experience. After that, it was a combination of needing to face our reality, as well as a kind of combined disbelief that our house had been flooded, combined with a level of embarrassment and being ashamed that somehow we'd created this situation for ourselves. It was about dealing with the reality of the moment, the tyranny of the urgent, the insurance, their house hunting. Landlords don't want short-term people, and we didn't know how long we'd be out. And I was amazed when the loss adjuster said we might be out for 6 weeks, but I realise now he was just being kind because we hadn't absorbed the magnitude of what we were talking out. Just the logistics of explaining and negotiating our way through rental references. We hadn't rented since we were students, and cleaning up the mess. We remember the kindness of our friends and our neighbours who didn't know us but brought us biscuits as we were cleaning up the street. I remember getting cross at small things. Probably it was the sheer size of what was in front of us and the uncertainty of the future. I remember getting frustrated when the insurance claim handler was questioning me about if it was truly necessary to throw my children's water-soaked pyjamas out. My response to her unkindly was to offer to bag up some of those pyjamas with the sewagey water and send them up to her to see if perhaps she'd like her children to wear them. I know it wasn't kind, but it was sheer frustration. Most people in Christchurch know that insurance helps take the edge off, but doesn't cover the full cost. And while some things get covered, the mortgage continues and you have to set up another house and paying for the other, and it becomes an issue. Different people have different advice, different loss adjusters, different claim handlers, and it's always hard to appreciate when yours isn't as straightforward as theirs. It certainly gave me an appreciation for what it must have been like for those in the September and February earthquakes who had to evacuate straight away. In the immediate aftermath, there was the outside mess of dirty nappies and toilet paper mixed with leaves and our underfloor insulation lying around all over the garden and the driveway. There's no cover for the assistance for that. You just have to do it yourself. And we can't be sure how long it's going to take to sanitise because sun is the solution for killing the bugs. It was tiring, but we wanted to clean up because somehow we want to remove that memory. The thing is, it's not just a one-off for us. Post-flood, the rest of the neighbourhood have taken off their gummies once the floods receded and the novelty was over. And it did for us too, but the energy and stress levels required for our everyday life to carry on are much higher. Our kids' routines carry on as normal, except for every time you get to a change of sports season, that requires a 2 to 3 hour hunt for the tennis racket or the cricket box or the football boots. One particular morning I realised just prior to the game that I'd actually thrown the boots out, so that required a quick trip to Rebel Sport to buy a brand new pair. It's an ongoing reminder, and we try not to feel re-traumatised, but mostly the children are saying that their mother was very grumpy as I tried to remember exactly where those things were. I remember at the time that I considered getting a t-shirt printed saying, "No, we are not back in our house yet. Gosh, it has been a month and we're still out. Yes, the water was contaminated. No, the insurance company won't pay to rise it. And no, we can't afford the 180k to do it ourselves. Yes, I don't know how we cope either." Once, it was supposed to be funny, once we did shift back home 5 months later after all the usual repairs and challenges that they can't face, we developed a different set of behaviours, some that we share with our Heathcote neighbours. The deep underlying worry that's brought on by forecast rain and what that might mean for us. We reassured the children it would be fine, just as they were starting to get anxious, and told ourselves it wouldn't happen again, even though it had already flooded 2 times, and the second time after the first. While everybody else is getting out their umbrella or their raincoat, we're looking up nervously at the horizon. Riverside dwellers in the Heathcote, they don't have just one Met Service bookmark, they have 2. One for the 2-hourly rain forecast and the second one for the Littleton tides. We raise things permanently up in our garage. We make the decision before we go to bed about if we're going to shift the car or not. And in the morning, if the worst hasn't happened, we meet all our other neighbours bringing their cars back from round the corner also. We wake up through the night and we peer out the window to see if the water's draining away and how high it is on the river. We sometimes take a dressing gown trip in gumboots and a torch to inspect the riverbank. Sometimes we do a midnight drive around to see how our river lord terrace mates are going, just as an indicator of what might be coming away. But the July floods meant that we've had a rinse and repeat experience, as it were. We're out of our house again, and this time round, thankfully, it wasn't dark. But this time, all the kids had to walk themselves out. The youngest one burst into tears. So the July flood confirmed what we suspected, that it'll keep on happening if nothing's done. and we're trapped in our main asset, unable to sell and unable to escape. There's a constant threat and nagging worry about what will happen next time, what will happen with the insurance excess, will they reinsure us? It doesn't go away, it's always there. We love Canterbury, we chose to live here. But the Heathcote experience is a hard work, and sorry. We can only describe it for us, but I know that other people are seriously affected, even if they didn't have a blood flooding like us. They've had issues with access to their driveway, not being able to go to school, to work, not being able to get their cars in and garage flooded, when the toilet won't flush, or worse, when it does flush and the house is flooded and it overflows inside. With hindsight, I've realised that our kids who are very, very healthy were often more sick, probably because of the contaminated underfloor insulation didn't get deemed necessary to be replaced by the first repair. The sewagey water, it dries to a sandy film of dust, and as the cars drive past, it blows in and around us. We're really grateful for your time and your focus to discuss the flood mitigation possibilities. We really support the comprehensive review, particularly the stop banks as well, and understand that it's a jigsaw puzzle. We're worried about the time frame that these fixes will take for us, and I wanted to come today to give you, actually I drew the short straw to be fair, I wanted to come and give you a lived experience of what it is, the links to the Opawaho. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou.
Kia ora, thank you very much. And from our perspective, it's not the short straw. There is nothing more compelling than the lived experience. So thank you very much for bringing that to the table, and that will assist us in our deliberations. Thank you. Could I also invite Bruce Kane and Sean Daly to come forward on the same subject?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Bruce Kane. I live at 91 Clarendon Terrace. I'm obviously here also to speak about the Heathcote River. I'm speaking on behalf of 300 residents in our area who have signed a petition. Unfortunately, we weren't aware that it had to be in 5 days before your meeting, so I can't present it, but we will present it, along with all the comments that people have made. We want the council to initiate a comprehensive maintenance and repair program in the lower Heathcote River. As long-term residents, we have seen the effects of lack of a thorough work program over the years, i.e. lack of riverbank growth control, less weed cutting, sediment build-up from drains flowing into the river, etc. The latter of which has been greatly exacerbated by the build-up of liquefaction after the 2010-11 earthquakes. Following the flooding in 2014, a number of houses along the river experienced overflow flooding, as the Mayor is well aware. She actually came to our house. This, is combined with contaminated water, caused a huge problems for a number of residents. Since the time of that flooding, a number of residents have attended council-initiated meetings and have been repeatedly given every reason under the sun as to what is causing these problems. 1 in a 100-year storm, particularly high tides, spring tides, heavy rain coming, all the while being assured by your engineers that dredging was not the answer. However, we are delighted to see that dredging is now a preferred option, but that alone won't solve the problem, especially as now the residents along the estuary are having similar problems. Along Clarendon Terrace, there are a number of gutter drains which overflow regularly due to backflaps not doing the job they were designed to, through lack of maintenance maybe. But when the question re one-way check valves was raised, no one seemed to know too much about them, despite the council having them fitted in South Brighton on outlets that flow into the estuary. Following the latest flooding in July this year, it became very obvious that the holding ponds in the Sparks-Henderson Road area were completely inadequate for the purpose for which they were designed. We experienced over-the-knee flooding through our property while the river was well below breaching its banks. The water came from obviously from things down through the rail bridge, down the footpath, not on the riverside. Over the knee, through inside a car. I've lost 2 cars personally through the flooding down there. The fact that the estuary is not able to deal with the water flowing has caused completely new problems, something that I never experienced while living on the edge of the estuary for a number of years. Again, building stop banks does not stop the flooding, but accept that there is a genuine need. We appreciate the councillors talking about buying out or raising affected houses. This will not stop flooding. Most residents living on the river and estuary have done so for a lifestyle. The stress of not knowing when the next episode will occur has taken the gloss off our lifestyle and taken much of the pleasure of living along the waterway away from many of us. And this on both sides of the river, all the way down. We've been told we've had every excuse under the sun why it can't be done. But now, as I say, we are grateful that you are going to at least, well, we presume you are going to at least start on a dredging program, because it doesn't take it's pretty obvious if you stand on a Sheldon Street bridge and have a look at the river when it's at low tide, what's causing your problems. Thanks. Sean.
Yeah, I'd like to start by thanking you for allowing us to speak today. In July, when the Heathcote River flooded, I rang the council 3 times in one day for concerns about the river flooding into my property. Each time I was told it's being monitored and we don't believe it will flood. After giving my address, no one visited the property. The flooding resulted in me having to go into a temporary accommodation and my pets being put into boarding kennels for 4 months. This, plus the storage costs for my contents, means I have no contents insurance left to cover the $7,000 worth of contents that I've lost. My insurance cover is not the fault of the council, but it adds to the stress and anxiety that many of the other residents live with on a day-to-day basis. Every time it rains for a few days, I have to set my alarm for high tide in the middle of the night and get up and check that the road isn't flooding. People make jokes about needing a boat to get out, but it's stress like this after all the earthquakes and previous floodings that we don't need. When the interior walls were pulled off in my property after the repairs, there was nothing but mould and rotten wood behind the jib, which I've been living in for years, which to me means repairs are not being done correctly. After talking to a few other residents, it is apparent that people are after different outcomes when it comes to the option of lifting or buying houses. If the answer is to buy houses, I ask, how will the council decide a property's worth? As a real estate agent that does a lot of work in this area, this year I've sold 2 houses in Clarendon Terrace, one before the floods, which reached $35,000 above GV, and one after the recent floods, which was $35,000 below GV. Both properties were presented really beautifully, and this is just confusing people that want to buy into the area. All I ask is that you communicate with those of us that are affected either one-on-one or in a smaller meeting environment so we can all be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have your petition with you?
Yes, I do.
Because I'm quite happy to move that we suspend that particular standing order so that we can receive the petition. Are people generally quite happy with that? You'd like to second that motion? So can you've got the wording there, haven't you? That the council suspends standing order 13.1 and agree to receive the petition. So that's moved by me, seconded by Sarah. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. So the petition is able to be received. So would you like to read the prayer of the petition and present that as well?
I'm sorry, did you read the wording of the petition?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, here. Where's the wording of the petition here?
It's on the top. Would you read it out?
Yeah. The background preamble, residents and businesses on and around the Heathcote River should not have to feel fear and anxiety that they will lose their homes and property, or that they will not be able to get to work, lose business, or keep themselves and their children safe. With the recent increase in risk of flooding due to earthquake damage and ongoing poor river and drainage maintenance, along with intensive residential development in the lower Port Hills, residents and businesses have now reached the crisis point. It is imperative that the Christchurch City Council takes immediate steps to remove the silt build-up from the river and start an effective river maintenance and dredging program, including fixing and maintaining stop banks and installing one-way check valves. The petition text says, "We, the undersigned, request the City Council to take action. With the recent increased risk of flooding around the Heathcote, it is imperative," exactly what I said before, to do the repairs. There's 300 signatures on there. This is from local people.
Yep.
There's a copy of that on there. We also have a a list of people's comments, which unfortunately I've only got one of, but it's all there. We have the support of our local MPs, Poto Williams, Ruth Dyson, Megan Woods. They've all signed. They're all aware of what's going on.
Yep.
And that's our petition.
Thank you very much. All right, well, look, there's still a couple of minutes there. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to... Pauline?
I'll just make a comment in response to one of your concerns, and thank you very much for coming in, and I know how difficult it is for you. But when you mentioned that if the flood intervention policy applies to Heathcote, there will be very much one-on-one discussions as we did in Flockton. It's a very personal matter, and the staff are very sensitive to that, and the way they conducted it in Flockton was very good, so I think you can rest assured that will be the case.
Great. Okay, we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, no, one of the follow-up sort of things to that is that when the decision was made by the council to purchase some of the Flockton properties, the idea was that when the additional works were completed, that the land itself, because it would be cleared, these were below the finished floor levels required for the new district plan and the flood vulnerability that existed, that we were able to sell that land in order that people could build at the higher finished floor levels. So, I mean, we're never going to be able to protect against the genuine 1 in 200. What worries me is that the 1 in 100 is going to become the 1 in 50, the 1 in 10, potentially with sea level rise over the next, well, long time after I'm gone. So, but you know, so that there are a variety of challenges that will confront the city for a long time hence. But the issue is that we were able to put some of that land back on the market, which is the answer to the question about if the houses are below the finished floor levels. And I think and I certainly saw examples when I came out in 2014 of where the floor levels actually were reduced in order to rebalance the house, which was a crazy thing to do next to a river.
I understand that.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. The point that we're trying to make, or one of the points I'm trying to make, is that even the new houses that are being built on Clarendon Terrace at the moment with the higher foundations, still doesn't stop flooding. You still can't get in and out of your house.
No, I know, and that's the issue about what we can do in terms of the river itself. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and appreciate you bringing the petition as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, now we move on to the Medway Street footbridge deputations, and I'd like to invite Evan Smith, Leanne Curtis and Tom McBrearty. This is item 47, which is on the supplementary agenda. Yeah, but they're second on my list.
My name is Evan Smith, and have on my right Tom McBrearty and Leanne Curtis on my left. We're not just, as we've been portrayed in the media, a couple of former residents with a bit precious about a bit of twisted metal. We're here as former community leaders of the Avonside and Richmond Riverside earthquake recovery community groups. We became founding members of CanSoon, and we're here because we are concerned, and we continue to work in earthquake recovery work. You'll be aware where the Medway Street Bridge at the end of is where it was located at the end of Medway Street in Richmond, that went across to Avonside, connected the two communities together. September the 4th, 2010, the very first earthquake, that bridge got entirely what was called munted. It became the iconic graphic portrayal of the power and impact of the earthquakes. It immediately disconnected the two sides of the river, Avonside with Richmond Riverside. it became a constant reminder in our face to those of us living along that riverside on both sides of the river and in those communities. It had an immediate impact on the communities. Kids can no longer get to school, and there's many kids in many schools in that area, in intermediate, primary and high schools. Access to shops was prevented because we went across the river, across that footbridge. It's where we met each other. It's where we went across to see our friends on the other side. It was also the amenity that we used to, the bridge we used to appreciate the amenity in the area. I used to keep fit by cycling to Brighton and back across that bridge and along the paths every day. That doesn't happen anymore. We used to meet each other along those trails. The bridge became further damaged in February 2011 to the extent you see there portrayed. In June 2011, the red zoning decisions took place. The bridge became a rallying point. It's a point where we alerted the city to the iniquities of the red zone offers and to the insurance and EQC processes. The Mayor herself was party to those rallies and spoke from those platforms. In 2012, we in the communities, not council, not Skirt, engaged with those communities to see what their views were on the bridge and the future use of that bridge. We had 150 respondents to an online survey that we conducted. 72% wanted the bridge put in storage until it could be reinstated at the same location as a commemorative structure in the future. 9% wanted it retained in situ as a commemorative structure right there and then. The other 19% were still dealing with the raw image of it in their face. And they were still dealing with rubberneckers. They were still dealing with the threat to the depreciation on their property values when they thought they were still going to be there, and they wanted it gone. But that engagement happened with us. Council and Skirt have never engaged on the bridge to date. And it needs to be clear that that engagement that's referred to in the report is actually our engagement, community's engagement. In February 2013, Skirt uplifted it and cut it into 3 and transported it to Ferrymead at our request and kept it in storage. We didn't have any choice about it being transported and uplifted. We didn't have any choice about it being cut in 3. We were told that's what it was to be. In those days with Skirt, it was about expediency and health and safety, and this was it, take it or leave it. But at least for us, it was put in storage and it was saved for the future. February 22nd, from 2011 onwards, it became a memorial site, a place for the River of Flowers commemorations, where the communities regathered that had dissolved and distributed throughout Christchurch, Greater Christchurch and New Zealand. People came together, people travelled from Nelson and places like that to meet each other again beside that bridge. It's really important to many, many people, and it's not something that gets taken lightly. We heard recently that it was going to be scrapped, and only the intervention of gap filler has stopped that from happening. It should never have been going down that path. The overall consensus then from the locals is that the bridge should be kept in storage and used as a commemorative structure in the future at that location, and we want that recognised.
So there is this idea that part of it can be, because it has been cut into 3, part of it can be used in the city for gap filler. We're not opposed to transitional use for it, but the thing that stressed us out is that the first time it would come out would be in the city, and it actually belongs in the east. It belongs in the east because it's not just a photographic structure, it's not just a piece of metal that shows the power of the earthquake. For us, it was the connector. It's one of the very, very few assets that we have in the east that we wanted to hold on to and we're able to save. The assets have been stripped, they've been demolished, everything comes into the city. We get the idea is to pull people in the city, and we're good with that. But the east was our place, and we've all had to leave it. So for us, the bridge is huge. I can go back in there and one day go back into Avonside, and the bridge that connected my house, my neighbours' houses, to Evan's place, to Tom's place, will be back there in some form, yet to be decided by the community. So anything that looks to put that secondary to chucking it in the CBD is the thing that's got our craw. So, you know, we've been working hard over the last couple of days because that is as much notice by chance as we have got that this was a decision would be made about its transitional use in the city. We've worked hard, we look for solutions. Our background has always been bring the solution, but it's been about sitting at the table. So there's a couple of things in that. We need you to know that if it is to go in the city, it also needs to go back in the east. So what we are going to be asking for is an absolute commitment to facilitating it in a transitional way in the beginning to go back where it should be, part of it, eventually with a mind for it being a final structure, all three parts pulled back together, and that needs to be where it is. And the community needs to be the deciders of how and what that looks like, because we need to be able to reconnect with our place, even though we live scattered across Canterbury. So that's one of the things there. The other thing, and this is really shooting something across the bow, it is a reminder that everybody here has utterly failed, again, in the community consultation space. There are so many of you that are sitting around here that knew our numbers. You knew that we lived there. You knew that we had the heart for that area. And the trauma, if you want to call it that it has been to move away. And yet it didn't occur to anybody that when it came up that the structure could be used, that you might say, hang on, there were whole communities of people there that cared. Maybe we should ask the question, has anybody gone back and talked to those people? It's not the new communities, they're important, but just because we're disbanded communities doesn't mean that we weren't important. So it is shooting across the bow. You have an ongoing commitment to ask the question, who should we be talking to? Who should you be talking to before you bring this to us? And it didn't happen. It's not just you, it's Regenerate, it's all of the recovery agencies that are here. Don't assume that because the community is not still there, it doesn't care. It cares. We're the holders of the knowledge at that time. We've got the knowledge. We've got the knowledge that the council and Skirt didn't, at the time, think together. So it's a hard shot. And I actually don't want you to feel slightly frustrated at that you assumed that you could make this decision and it would be a positive for the city, because doesn't everybody want to see this piece come back? But you didn't think, what are the sensitivities around that? Are there things that we should think of that are not going to be right in our head? So don't let that happen. Don't let it happen again. When you are making decisions around moving forward, you have to look back. Who do we look back to? I mean, it's kind of lucky that we're still here. There are lots of other people that were involved at the time that you might have to work a little harder to track down, but take the effort to track them down.
Yeah, if I may, thank you, Mayor. The bridge for me was I was one of the 19% that assumed the bridge should go and disappear, because it really hurt to see it like it was and see what it had done to our community. I went home and told the family I'd made a decision and said that the bridge should go. I don't think I've had so many vitriolic emails from my family in my life telling me that I was wrong and the bridge needed to be remembered and stayed in some shape or form. It's a place, the bridge may have been just a connector, but underneath that bridge, as a number of you now know, that was a weir that was there. In that weir, a young child drowned, and that's why that bridge ended up being there. So it's far more than just a bridge. It's a memory of what happened in the past. There are some funny things which I think we should allude to. I have 3 sons. One of them came home absolutely dripping head to foot. I said to him, "What did you do?" And he said, "Oh, I jumped off the bridge." "Why?" "Well, I just wanted to see what it was like." So he was at school at the time, but that's what kids did on that bridge. And it was a playground, it was a place to fish, it was a place to go to. It's been now drawn up by one of my other sons as a picture on the wall at home to remind us where we used to live. So it's a very emotional thing, but at the same time it's also, from my business pragmatic point of view, a massive piece of engineering learning that could be used at some stage in the future, where people can look at that and say, woof, the river moved that much. And that was the banks on each side. So whatever comes out of this, I think we've got to remember that the bridge at the moment is in 3 pieces. We have the opportunity to divide 2 of those pieces into temporary memorials, but use the middle piece as the heart to pull the whole bridge together, hopefully back as close as possible to the location it used to be in. Thank you.
You know, I think the point is well made. You know, that in terms of process, I think that there has been a bit of a slip up in how the right community's been engaged in the process. I'm hoping that we can find a way forward. And could you just go to the new resolutions that we've been working on? I'm going to invite Ryan Reynolds to come forward. I'm afraid I have to go, so I'm going to allow Andrew to take over the chair. But the idea is to add a couple of resolutions to the existing one, which would enable the temporary proposal to go ahead, plus investigate with urgency and in collaboration with Regenerate Christchurch. That actually needs to say Regenerate Christchurch, sorry, I just was writing my own shorthand, and community stakeholders, a transitional structure utilising another element of the Medway Bridge at its original location, and provide a report to the relevant committee by the end of May 2018. That's sort of putting a 6-month time frame on it, so it's quick. And the Mayor provide a letter of support for any application to external funding bodies to enable the transitional project to proceed. So, and that's an indication of our willingness to work collaboratively with the community. It also includes ensuring that the wording that is accepted as the legend on both the transitional facility in the city and this one truly reflects the views of the community. So thank you. I know that it was brought to you at short notice. It was brought to us at short notice as well, because I don't think anyone had really thought through what the ownership was and then who the responsibility lay with in terms of the engagement. So thank you very much for working so hard, so fast, and enabling us to potentially find a solution here today. Could I invite Ryan to come forward? And I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to depart. I shall be back.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ryan, good morning and welcome to the table. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Kia ora koutou. I think probably most of you have heard a little bit, at least, about the work that we're doing in relation to the East Frame. So just a quick background, about 18 months ago now, Gap Villa was engaged by Fletcher Living to do some work, putting together a strategy sort of program for how they could get some good community outcomes on the land that's awaiting development. At that time, we did a lot of engagement with all of the inner city residents associations, and one of the biggest concerns we heard was that the new neighborhood is not going to acknowledge the history or indeed the present of the place, that there's actually still a neighborhood there, and there has been a neighborhood there for a long time. So we've been looking for ways through the work that we're doing to integrate some of the existing community and those stories. So we've got Te Whare Roimata, the Inner City East Residents Association. We're actually paying them to take on a role in the East Frame, actually as parking attendants. That'll be coming up soon. Oxford Terrace Baptist Church taking on custodial roles in the area and actually resourcing them to do so out of our program, just to actually integrate what we're doing with the existing community. So at that time, 18 months ago, it was clear to us that telling stories from the area was just really vital. So we engaged with the Heritage team in Council, with Heritage New Zealand, and have looked for any way possible to to bring stories to light through the work that we've been doing. At that time, Brendan, the head of the council heritage team, made an unexpected offer. He said council had a warehouse out in Ferrymead of recovered bits of buildings from the area that we could incorporate into some of our projects. We talked to him specifically about a mini golf course. So to be clear, this was a pre-existing agreement between a mini golf company and I believe the Crown that they could use some of the East Frame land to put a mini golf course in there. Purely a commercial operation, and it was our feeling that we could get a better outcome out of this, and so we were in a strange position where we could actually require them to have a heritage-themed mini golf course and to take the advice of Council Heritage Team and Heritage New Zealand on what objects to include in the mini golf course, what stories to bring to light through that. So every hole in the mini golf course is telling a story of some particular building or historical thing of historical significance, so that you play mini golf, but somehow you learn a bit about the past and present of that neighbourhood. And Heritage New Zealand have curated all the stories and made the recommendations there. So fast forward to this year, 6 months ago in June, we visited the Ferrymead facility along with Council Heritage Team and Heritage New Zealand to receive their advice on what objects were potentially available, what would be suitable, what would be unsuitable for our purposes. And outside the storage facility, we saw the 3 pieces of the Medway Street footbridge sitting, covered in feces and growing weeds around it and so on, and inquired what was going on there. So the heritage team said it actually wasn't their business, but they looked into it, discovered that it was the transport team. We engaged with the transport team. Actually have written correspondence that they were working through plans to dispose of the asset, so we put in a request to make temporary use of one section. That was, as far as we were concerned, approved in late September by Transport, and so construction got underway of the mini golf course to accommodate that. So the ramp's already been built, the footings for the bridge have been there for about 6 or 8 weeks. Also in September, we had contact with Regenerate Christchurch, the residential red zone team. They indicated to us that there were 2 comments in their community consultation regarding the importance of the Medway Street footbridge to community identity, that there were possible plans for a permanent memorial incorporating the bridge, but that was several years away, and they advised that our proposal, quote, sounds like a really positive way of reusing the damaged structure while its long-term future is uncertain. CC'd in several others in the organization on that advice, and we never heard anything further, so assumed that we'd kind of done our due diligence there. So just to be clear, the course is under construction and actually almost complete. The bridge is meant to be kind of the centerpiece of the course. The footings and everything for it were constructed 6 or 8 weeks ago. The hope was to get it open in time for the school holidays, or at least for Christmas, but we'll see how we go. The first I heard that there were genuine community concerns was when the council agenda was made public, and I discovered that it was a public thing in a full council forum. It makes me feel awful to think that we've in some way hurt some of these people who are indeed, some of my city heroes post-quake. And that's certainly, people whose opinions I really value on all sorts of matters, not just this particular one. And, I've been beating myself up about that a little bit, that we haven't engaged better with them. But in the same voice, I think I have to share what Leanne Curtis said, that actually this is what the public agencies and advisors are for. I don't think we can possibly be expected to engage with every former Central City resident or worker, whether anyone might object to us using a piece of golf house in this way. That's why we engaged with the heritage team. We received their advice on what pieces were and were not suitable. They actually advised us on several things that weren't suitable because the previous building owner wouldn't be happy with it, etc. And so too with the Medway Street Bridge. I mean, I feel like we kind of did our due diligence there, and it has been a bit of a failure of the public agencies here. So I think that's enough from me.
All right, thank you, Ryan, for the background.
Yep.
I guess, questions on the mini golf project itself, would be best directed to Ryan, but then I would invite our own staff to the table so that we can ask questions on the paper, and then we'll proceed to debate. So, I mean, really, the questions for Ryan will be just on the project and the proposed use of the bridge within the project. So, Dion, Glenn, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, the first I knew of the mini golf thing was actually a week ago, really. Did see it being built, but what's the, is it going to be pay to use?
Yes, it is.
So it's actually going to be a pay to use, so the community that want to be able to sort of interact with it will have to pay for it.
That's right. And that was a pre-existing agreement between the mini golf providers and the Crown, and what we've managed to arrange is that there's this heritage component, and that a percentage of the site license fee that they're paying goes directly into more community activities in the area.
And they're paying the Crown to use the land?
They have a license agreement with the Crown, and there's a fee associated with that, yeah.
My goodness gracious.
Glenn.
Thank you. I think, morning Ryan, I think in some ways, you know, Christmas is used as an artificial deadline right around, you know, around the community. So what is the rush? 5.6 in the report talks about due to open before Christmas. I mean, everyone wants everything done by Christmas. So is there any need that it really, you know, whatever happens needs to be done by then?
From my personal perspective, no. To be clear, this is a third party that's actually building and operating the course. They've already spent, I'm not sure what the figure would be, but you know, the cost to actually construct the course is $80,000 to $100,000. They only have a temporary use of the site. So for the numbers to stack up for them to invest that much to put a community amenity in that area, I mean, they were expecting to be open already, and certainly, I mean, you know, from their perspective, yeah, they're banking on the school holiday, trade, etc. So that's the rush from their perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Ryan. I think that you're right, that the telling the stories thing is really important. You mentioned that each of the holes would have sort of a different story. What's the sort of signage and stuff? Sorry. Going around the bridge, have you got any idea of what the sort of the interpretation signage or the story around the bridge is going to be?
Yeah, so we've got something like a 12 or 15 page document from Heritage New Zealand where they made recommendations for all the different stories that we should bring to light, and bits of heritage material that we should use, and they've curated the stories there. The idea is, and when the Medway Street footbridge was offered, they curated a story around that. So we do have, you know, material prepared by the experts, and that's going to go on signage, so every hole will tell a story there. Subsequently, we've talked to Evan and Leanne and others, and they said actually they would like to write the story themselves or have that community write the story, and we're entirely happy with that. In fact, happier with that than the current situation.
I was just going to ask if it was if it could be community for that one.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah.
Great. Bearing in mind that Ryan's was a deputation, I'll just allow two more questions, one from Pauline, one from Yanni, and then we'll bring staff to the table and proceed.
Thank you.
Pauline.
Mine's kind of a question, but it's also recognising that you virtually apologise for something that really wasn't your fault. But I think actually more the point out of this is that if we should thank you, because if you hadn't gone out there, it sounds like that bridge was at risk of being disposed of. And it just brings to my mind that could we have something in place to actually ensure that there's no risk to anything else out there? There needs to be some kind of transparency. If something is going to be disposed of, perhaps we should know about it. That's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, overstepping my bounds a little bit, it's been my experience that a lot of the heritage material that's been recovered in that facility is down to one staff member who went in his own time and just picked up bits of buildings off the ground as they were being demolished and threw them in the back of his ute. So the team is not resourced well enough to actually do that particular job.
Do something with that?
I'm wondering whether there's something we could add to this resolution that asks for, when we come to consider it, that asks for maybe a list of or catalogue of heritage items which have been recovered and stored, so that we can then work out how we might want to deal with those. One of the things that's come out of this set of conversations that we've had this morning already is the value of this particular item to the community that previously lived beside it and around it. There may well be other items that have got equal importance to other communities that we need to be and should be aware of. So, yeah, it's a good point. Maybe have a think about some wording that we could add to this resolution to ask for an additional piece of work to be done. And finally, Yanni.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron, for coming. Just, if we choose not to use part of the bridge, then what does that do to the project? And the second question is, have you discussed the amended resolutions with the communities that have come and talked to us today around their agreement with a way forward?
Yeah, so it took a bit of doing, but I found out who else was making a deputation in advance, and rang Evan yesterday, and we've been working since yesterday and frantically this morning to come to an agreement that would be happy for both of us. So yeah, we worked through that along with the mayor early this morning. Sorry, what was the other part of the question?
So if we were of a mind not to grant permission to use it, then what would that mean for your project?
I actually can't quite answer that because there's this third-party operator who's actually constructing. I mean, I would say we'd have to get some more earthworks happening on the site, undo the footings that have already been built, and redesign some aspects of the course, and it may or may not open a couple months from now, something like that.
Right.
So,
okay.
I don't know,
All
hard
right.
for me to answer that. Sorry.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much, Ryan, indeed, for the deputation for your answers to those questions as well. It's been very useful.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So now if I could invite staff to the table. Lynette and Richard, I think, are here for this item.